What's up, Rad family? I'm Dakota Freeman, and welcome to the Rad Adventure Dude channel. Today, I want to teach you how to do a wheelie on your dirt bike. If this video helps you out, make sure you drop some comments down below, hit that subscribe button, and like this video. Let's get into it. So today, I want to teach you how to do a wheelie on your dirt bike. At this point, you need to be super comfortable with how to ride a dirt bike and all the different controls. This way, if something goes wrong, you know exactly what to do to be able to correct it. And make sure whenever you're learning how to do wheelies for the first time, you start doing small wheelies where you just barely get the front end off the bike and then set it back down. And then gradually, over time, be able to pick the front wheel up more and more and hold it for longer and longer. This is super important because you don't want to overdo it the very first time you try to do a wheelie and loop out going off the back of the motorcycle. That is the absolute worst thing that can happen when trying to do a wheelie, so let's try to avoid that. So there's going to be some different types of wheelies that you can do, and then just find what works best for you by what's the most comfortable. You can stand and use the power of the motorcycle to be able to pick up the handlebars and do a standing wheelie. You can also sit on the back of the bike and be able to pick the wheel up while you're sitting and using the power to balance your front wheel. Or you can use the clutch and be able to kind of pop the front wheel up and then hold it while sitting down that way. So let's go ahead and dive into these different types of wheelies and what's going to be the best and most comfortable for you. So the easiest wheelie for me is going to be doing a standing wheelie. This is where I stand up on the pegs and simply use the power of the motorcycle to lift the front wheel up. I like to stand on the pegs with my weight centered more over the rear wheel. This is because it's going to give you more weight on the rear wheel, giving you more traction. This way, whenever you slam on the gas, it's really going to pick up the front wheel and not just spin the back tire. Also, whenever you're centered more over the rear wheel, once you pick the front wheel up, you're actually going to be the ballast to hold the front wheel up off the ground. If you're too far forward, you're just going to pick the wheel up and it's going to come right back down. But leaning over the rear wheel is actually going to give you a counterweight to hold the front end up off the ground. So the way I pick up my front end whenever I'm doing a wheelie is going to be using the throttle while I lift up on the handlebars. The reason I like to do a wheelie like this is because I can put it in a higher gear, and as I'm going, I can simply give it more throttle, use my upper body to really lift the front wheel off the ground, and then as I lean back over the rear wheel, I'm going to be the ballast holding the front wheel where I want it to be. While I'm holding the front end up off the ground, I just use the power to be able to keep it right where I need the front wheel to be and not go over backwards and not let it drop to the ground. If you feel like you're going to go over backwards, there's two different ways you can stop the bike from going over backwards. The first way is going to be to hit the rear brake, and that's really going to drop your nose to the ground immediately. Also, if you're unable to get to your rear brake, then you can pull the clutch in and hold it. Let off the throttle, and that's going to really help pull your front end down as well. The best way, though, is to hit your rear brake, and it's going to really bring your front end back to the ground as fast as possible. Another type of wheelie is going to be doing the same thing but while sitting on the dirt bike. I find it harder to do a wheelie while sitting down because I feel like I don't have as much control over my body and being the ballast of the dirt bike. If I'm standing, I'm going to be gripping with my legs, and I can actually move my body weight forward and back as I have the front end off the ground. But for me, sitting down feels a lot harder because I don't have my body weight that I can move forward and back to be my ballast. I'm kind of pulling the front end up with the power, with the handlebars, but now that I'm sitting down, I'm kind of stuck with wherever I start this wheelie. So it's going to be very important if you're doing a wheelie sitting down that you start centered over your rear wheel. This is just because once you actually pick the front end up, you're not going to be able to move forward or back. You're kind of stuck with right where you're at. So doing this style of wheelie, you really depend on being in the right gear and relying heavily on the throttle to keep your front end up off the ground. You just want to make sure that whenever you try to do a wheelie sitting down, that you are going to be centered over the rear wheel once you pick up the front tire. because if you're too far back, it's going to send your weight backwards and it's going to make it a lot easier to loop out the bike. And if your weight's too forward, it's going to make it much harder to be able to pick the front end up off the ground. So between the two different styles of wheelies there, I find it much easier just to be able to do a wheelie while standing up off the pegs. The next style of wheelie is going to be going slower and using more of the clutch to bring up the front wheel. I find it much more inconsistent doing it this way and using the clutch to pop out and to actually lift the front end off the bike, just because the bike's going to be doing different things every time you let the clutch out. It's not always going to be the exact same, and that's going to make it harder over time to consistently be able to do your wheelies. But you're going to pull the clutch in and use the throttle to kind of bring up the revs of the motorcycle. Just by simply blipping the throttle a couple of times, you're going to feel and hear the revs get higher, and then at that point you can let the clutch out fast as you're giving it throttle, and you're really going to feel the front end want to pick up off the ground. Like I said, it's kind of more dangerous and inconsistent to learn this style of wheelie just because you don't know how much torque and how much traction you have under your rear wheel. So it makes it more inconsistent because you could just barely pop the wheel up, or your bike could completely loop out from under you if you give it too much throttle right off the bat. But it's better when you're trying to do this kind of wheelie if you're going slower. That way you're just going slow at an easy pace, and then as you pop the clutch out, it's really going to just bring the front wheel up. At that point, you can use the throttle to hold it where it's going to be, but you don't have to be going as fast like when you're doing the other style of wheelies. But make sure whenever you're learning to do these wheelies, you heavily rely on your legs to grip the motorcycle. Whether you're sitting down or standing up, your legs gripping to the bike are really going to be your glue to hold you on the motorcycle. Your upper body is going to be used to really pick the bike up and then to simply hold it where it's at up in the air. Your throttle is going to be your ballast point to keeping the front wheel up in the air and not to go too far backwards. If you feel like you're going too far backwards, you need to put on the rear brake, and this will really aggressively bring your front end to the ground so you don't go over the back of the motorcycle. So now that you know about these different styles of wheelies, it's up to you to just continually practice this slowly over time. This isn't something that comes the first day you get on a bike. It may not be something that comes the first year. Once you get very comfortable with all your bike's fundamentals, and once you're super comfortable with all the controls, and you're ready to step it up to the next level, then this is when wheeling is going to come into play with your dirt bike riding. Make sure you're super comfortable on the bike, and you're going to want to practice this starting out small and then continually do bigger and bigger wheelies over time. This is going to be a very important key to becoming a very good dirt bike rider. This is because when you're riding fast and you want to ride smoother, doing wheelies on certain parts of the tracks and trails to keep the front end of your bike light is going to make you so much faster. Also, when you're doing these wheelies, you're going to have so much weight over the back end of your motorcycle that it's going to aggressively have more traction, and at that point you have much more acceleration. So this is definitely an advanced technique, but the more you practice this over time, it's going to get super comfortable, and you're going to be able to use it on the tracks and trails to be a much better rider. Guys, I really hope you watch this video and it really helps you out. I also have an entire dirt biking course on my website. So you can check out theradadventuredude.com and be able to find the course there, as well as a couple different products. If this video helped you out, make sure you drop some comments down below and ask any questions that you may have. Hit that subscribe button and like this video. I'm Dakota Freeman, and I will see you guys next time. Make sure you click right here and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any of my future content. After that, you can watch my next video right here. So go ahead and click on it. I'll see you guys over there.